What's up, guys? Matt Brown, Steven Anders here for thelines.com, and we are heading into week number 3 of Survivor. Hopefully you are still around. Well, if you're watching this, you are still around, and somehow you avoided the carnage that has happened in weeks 1 and 2. Steven, we had week 1 that was absolutely crazy town, and then in week 2, we did get the big upset with the Jets over the Browns, eliminated a healthy another wad of people who had the Browns this past week. Fortunate enough for me that I played the game theory route, and when I saw the Browns were going to be one of the more popular picks on the week, that got me off of the Browns. I ended up on the 49ers, so I am still around, fortunately. But man, just 2 weeks in the Circa contest, we're already well under the 40% mark of players left. So this has just been absolutely crazy the first couple of weeks.
Yeah, not just Circa, the big ESPN Survivor pool that they have going. Both of these, more than 50% eliminated week 1, of those remaining, another 25% eliminated week 2. So absolute carnage. And again, to your point, if you're trying to be one of the few remaining, you don't want to be in a big group at the end. Following that game theory, trying to fade some of the more popular picks for the week has worked out very well, and no reason to stop doing it in this week either, I think.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that this is probably one of those things where if you take a look and we, are trying to figure out the optimal way to go through all of this stuff, it's probably trying to get to some of these teams that you believe are going to win, but maybe not as popular as everybody else out there. And so let's take a look. Steven, not the same thing we had last week where we had just a massive amount of double-digit favorites this week. We do have the Chiefs that are 6.5 to 7 point favorites over the Colts. Of course, the Chiefs are going to be on the road. That is the first home game for the Colts of the season. Another game in consideration, I think there will be some people who are trying to decide whether they want to play the Vikings, who are 6-point home favorites over the Lions this week. So there is that. The Eagles are 6.5 to 7 point favorites over the Commanders. That is a road game for the Eagles. The Chargers are 7-point favorites over the Jags this week. That is a home game for the Chargers. Of course, as we record this, we still don't know the injury situation for Justin Herbert. So again, we can't give you the full breakdown of that one. But whenever we look at it, I mean, that's kind of where we're at right now as far as the big favorites of the week. And so this is going to become a pretty interesting week from where do the masses head, who gets the majority of the picks, and where did people who want to zig when other people are zagging, where do they decide to go?
For sure. At least for now on Tuesday evening, it doesn't look like the Vikings are a hugely popular pick in terms of the ESPN pool of Survivor players. Only 8% right now are on the Vikings. As far as the Chiefs, 18% pick there. And then the other big favorite here potentially is the Los Angeles Chargers. We can get into a conversation on that. Justin Herbert with fractured rib cartilage, not the bone, but cartilage. It was clearly very painful for him. But despite the uncertainty with Herbert against an upstart Jaguars team that I think you and I are both higher than most of the public are, even at this point after an impressive week 2 win, 27% in the early going have picked the Chargers in week 3 Survivor. And that is not an opponent I am comfortable with completely fading anymore at this point.
Well, I think there's just such an incredible amount of future value to the Chargers getting them when Herbert's healthy, right? Like that's the problem is like for me, like I think that they win for sure, but I am not willing to kind of burn that on a week where he could be compromised and, we're going to get a backup for a vast majority of the game if he takes one hit to those ribs. And so for me, I'm with you, man. Like if everybody's going to go there and it does seem like the Chargers are going to be one of the more popular plays of the week, I will gladly fade them. Again, I still think that they win. I just think that they hold so much value further down the line, especially if they're as good as you and I think that they are going to be. I mean, let's remember, J.C. Jackson's still just now getting back out there for this team. They were without Keenan Allen last week. They need to get Keenan Allen back in there. Like, I just think that the Chargers, and again, there's going to be injuries throughout the course of the season. Maybe they never get fully healthy, but I'm going to assume at some point that they are a much healthier version of this team than they are now. And so to me, that is more valuable down the line.
And listen, we think that Justin Herbert is more likely than not to play in this game, but we're still recording this on Tuesday night. There's a chance that they don't play him to take the long-term view, to try and give him another week to have less pain and to be more fully healed. If that's the case, from a win probability perspective, in terms of converting the money line to an implied probability, they get knocked out of this top tier. Because right now we're looking at a 7-point spread. That's basically straddling the middle of what the look-ahead line was and what this line would be if it's Chase Daniel playing for the Chargers. So if it is Daniel, this is getting knocked down to probably like a 4.5 point line. And then the Chargers are not in this top tier of the teams most likely to win in terms of implied probability.
So if we head down and we take a look, I mean, we do have the Eagles who look like world beaters. I know you are very happy about that. At Washington, this would be a road game, but they do find themselves as, like I said, 6.5 to 7-ish point favorites this week. If you look, again, when we're talking about future value as well from a Circa perspective, if you're watching this year in the Circa contest, just keep in mind the teams that play on Thanksgiving: Bills, Lions, Giants, Cowboys, Patriots, Vikings. You're going to have to play one of those teams on the Thanksgiving week. And then the Christmas schedule is Packers, Dolphins, Broncos, Rams, and Bucks, Cardinals. So again, those are teams just to keep in mind that you'll have to play down the line. Now, Steven, what I didn't mention was the Eagles, and whenever we were talking about that. So the Eagles would be at least in play this week for people, even in the Survivor contest if they wanted to. That being said, I mean, look, I love this team. I think this team is only going to get better. I think Jalen Hurts, the more that he figures out how to, I mean, the one thing I loved this past week was how he was spreading the ball around. I think that only gets better for them as well. I think for me, I'd rather hold this Eagles team in pocket. I know, again, if you're looking for what I consider to be a pretty confident win on the week, I am very confident in this Eagles team and this Eagles defense being able to hold Carson Wentz down. But again, just from a game theory standpoint, a team that I would sure love to have in pocket down the line.
Massive respect in the market for the Philadelphia Eagles. Futures have skyrocketed for this team. I never know what to say, plummeted or skyrocketed. They've skyrocketed up the board, right? So they're like the second choice to win the NFC. They're top 5 in Super Bowl futures. They went from 4 to like 7 on this line. So massive respect there as well. But to your point, great future value for them. Coming into the season, we had them pinpointed as a top 3 easiest schedule in terms of opponent win totals. And just if you look up and down their schedule, plenty of easy home games. You get this Washington team at home later down the road. You have still 2 games against the Giants. You have the Cowboys in week 6. We'll see whether or not Dak Prescott is back or not. Still a contest in week 9 against the Houston Texans. So I'm still holding the Eagles.
Pittsburgh. And
yeah, they look bad too.
And week 8 against Pittsburgh, and let me tell you, I feel like we are going to be seeing Kenny Pickett by about week 8, right? So I think you're getting kind of the Kenny Pickett
next week. I think Kenny Pickett next week.
So it's like you're going to get a rookie-led Pittsburgh team, and even if you want to play them on the road, which we know is not optimal, but at Houston week 9, at Chicago week 15, to projected 2 of the teams projected to be some of the worst there is out there. So I'm holding on to the Eagles. So, Steven, where do we go? Is it the Vikings? Do we expect a big bounce back by Cincinnati against the Jets? Do we go and just try and play the Chiefs? I mean, like where are we looking this week? Because this is a pretty interesting test.
I do think this is a big get-right week for the Bengals. I don't think their offensive line will be nearly as tested against the Jets' defensive front as it was against Pittsburgh and Dallas. So I think this is a big bounce-back spot. But again, go back to game theory here, Matt. ESPN contest, second most popular choice behind the Chargers, 22% picking the Bengals. Obviously, from the first 2 weeks, when you lose to, let's see here, Mitch Trubisky and Cooper Rush, yes, it's in the range of outcomes that they could lose to Joe Flacco and the Jets for sure. But I would at least be more willing to use that than burning the Chargers early on, especially with how tough the Bengals schedule gets the rest of the way. The team that I'm looking at in terms of game theory is on Thursday Night Football, and it's the Cleveland Browns, because I'm curious what you think about this, because they are like less than 5% picked here across all the pools. I think Mitch Trubisky is trash. I think that offensive line is trash. I think the Browns defensive front is elite with Myles Garrett. And It's going to be a long time we have to wait to use the Browns against a crummy offense while we're waiting for Deshaun Watson to come back from suspension.
The future value for the Browns is almost non-existent if you're playing to win, right? Because you're the only chance you'd want to use this team is, like you said, once you get to like week 12 and beyond when Deshaun Watson's back, and you need to be around by then, right? And like the future value for this team. I'm glad you pointed this out, Stephen, because that, as we record this, is where I'm leaning this week. I think both entries of mine are going to go in on Cleveland. It's one of those deals where, hey, look,
they got steamed too, Matt. They got steamed.
Yes, and did they blow elite? Look, Stephen, what would this line be, right? What would this line be in this game if Nick Chubb had just fallen down, right?
Right.
If Nick Chubb falls down and they win the game and the clock just ticks out, which, by the way, they would have won the game by double digits had he just fallen down, right? Like, what are we looking at here? I mean, we're sitting right now with this thing 4.5 or 5, depending, no man's land. This would be 6. Like, this would be one of the bigger favorites on the week. And so, look, I know Cleveland is certainly not one of those teams you want to run and back and you feel super confident with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback. But again, great maybe future potential here for the Steelers 2 years from now. They got a great, young receiving core, and maybe Kenny Pickett's great, and you get TJ Watt back and all the stuff like that. But TJ Watt ain't back this week, and Kenny Pickett ain't starting this week. And, we hadn't seen Pickens even record more than a catch in a game yet. So for me, I think that's the play. And that's where I'm going to go, man. I know that Cleveland burned a lot of people last week, knocked a lot of people out of the contest, which probably is going to keep people off of them as well. I think this is a pretty solid play.
Yeah, you mentioned Nick Chubb. Even if he scores, just get the onside kick, which is at this point, like a 95% probability when you onside kick it of the receiving team recovering it. So yeah, I'm at the point now, Matt, where I'm starting to form some strong opinions about the really bad offenses in this league in the 2022 season. And I think the Pittsburgh Steelers, while Mitch Trubisky's the quarterback, are bottom 5 and perhaps worse because through 2 weeks, they've had the Bengals, which was a middle of the road defense a year ago. They have the Patriots, which, to quote you last week, they ain't got no dogs. I love that. Best analysis of the Patriots I've heard all season. But this offense for Pittsburgh, 24th in EPA per play, and success rate is even worse. They're 29th. So they are just inconsistent. They can't get anything going. They didn't cross the 40-yard line in week 1 unless they got a turnover off of it. TJ Watt is not playing to help this defense. So I'm full fade for Pittsburgh at this point. This is not the same conversation as whether or not I'm going to bet on Cleveland to cover the spread at 4 or 5.5 on Thursday night. I just need them to win the game, and I feel really confident in that with a low total as well. I think around 40, maybe even lower at this point. Yeah,
so for me, Cleveland is the play for me. So if that's my number one play, what are we looking at from what's the second option here for us? Is it Cincinnati? I mean, like I think it probably, we're talking about a very tough schedule for Cincinnati, right? I mean, like you can't look further down the line and say that you would just be super, super happy to play this team really as we move forward, right? Because we found out that Miami is pretty good. That's who they have in week 4. Baltimore, you're not going to be jumping up and down to play them then. New Orleans, on the road at New Orleans, you're going to be jumping up and down to play them then. Maybe Atlanta in week 7. But again, Stephen, we got to get to week 7 first. And so I think my pecking order would be Cleveland, Cincinnati, and then if you had to, I guess the Chiefs would probably be 3rd for me as far as the pecking order.
Yeah, for sure. I think I'm with you there on the top 2 for sure. I'm going to take the Browns based on game theory. If after that, I'm going to go with the Bengals in a get-right week, take a little bit of a chance there, just because I want to try and save the Chargers and the Chiefs for down the road and all the reasons we talked about of saving the Chargers for when they're fully healthy. I know the Vikings are a big favorite this week. I'm not comfortable with it, and I'll tell you why. And this is the last point I'll make here for week 3 about the Detroit Lions. And I'm not sure what my full opinion about this team is for rest of season. And I would not use what I'm about to say as a reason to go and make a bet against the spread. But when we're talking about range of outcomes of whether a team can win or lose as a big favorite in week 3, The Detroit Lions are only the 5th team this century to score 35 plus points the first 2 weeks and be an underdog in week 3. The previous 4 not only all covered the spread in week 3, but won outright as underdogs, and 3 of them did it on the road. So what I'm saying is that in cases like this in the past, at least in this century of football where we see more passing offenses, these offenses are sticky. Not only did they all win, but they all scored at least 33 points in week 3, so that offensive production continued again. So I'm not going to be the guy that sits here and says Detroit was fluky. They had garbage time points in week 1, and they played Washington in week 2, didn't score a lot of points. There's something to this offense now that they've done it twice, scoring that many points. And we saw that Minnesota's secondary is absolutely beatable. So I am not comfortable playing the Vikings this week, despite being a 7-point favorite in Survivor.
And then even further, Steven, it's like you're not gaining any leverage on the field by making that play either, right? Like they're not going to be one of the top 3 or 4 most popular choices on the week. And so with that, like you're not really even gaining a ton of leverage by playing them, right? It's like, it's just so it's for me, I'm with you. Like I think it's Cleveland and Cincinnati as the clear top 2. Third for me, I'd rather save the Chiefs, but I think third, if you're less risk averse, whatever, then like if you're risk averse, then I guess the Chiefs will be third for me in that regard. And those will be the 3 teams for me this week.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not even going to give a third because I don't feel all that confident about anybody else. Browns or Bengals and call it a week. That's it for me.
Again, guys, we're trying to win these contests, right? And that's why you're sitting here going like, what are you talking about? You're giving us Browns and Bengals this week. Bengals have looked like trash. The Browns are trash as a whole. Listen, we're trying to win these contests. You get the Chiefs and you save the Chiefs. The Chiefs have games against Tennessee in week 9, Jacksonville in week 10, Houston in week 15, Seattle in week 16. Like the Chiefs bring so much value for you down the line. The Chargers, as we mentioned, week 7 against Seattle, week 9 against Atlanta. And plus by then you have a healthier Justin Herbert. Like that's the reason why we're not gravitating towards one of these super, super popular teams this week, because again, so much value down the line. We're trying to win these contests because the only way you win is to win it. It's the last person standing. So don't be a sheep when it comes to something like this. That's kind of the best advice we could give, Steven. So, hey, play to win, play to win.
Yeah, absolutely. And hey, I guess we're picking the Browns who lost to the Jets last week and the Bengals who are 0-2 against crap quarterbacks. What could go wrong, Matt?
What could go wrong,
Here
baby?
Go.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Guys, everything we do, absolutely free. So again, as always, go down, hit that subscribe button. We really do appreciate the support on the channel. Just hit 3 million views on this thing. So do appreciate you guys being around for the ride. Free content all season long, every single sport going to be right here on the channel. Of course, also, head over to the lines. We're doing free contests every single week where you can win prizes, whether it be gift cards or swag or whatever it might be. So be sure and join in those as well. And the Discord you can hit in the upper right-hand corner of the site. That will also get you in on some excellent discussion in every single sport that's going on, but also some free contests and ways to win free money as well. At Steven Andrus 1 on the Twitter machine if you want to follow him. At Matt Brown M2 if you want to follow me. Good luck on Survivor here in week 3.